are they throwing gasoline?
Yeah, we were just talking about the wildfire situation and how crazy it is that they spent $24 billion last year on the homeless.
Yeah.
And what did they spend on preventing these wildfires?
Zero.
Zip.
Yeah, it's all funny. And then I think all our tax dollars probably went for Gavin's hair gel. I don't know, but it's like, it's sad. It's like the place is just on fire.
And he gets on TV and pretends like everything's great.
Mm-hmm.
And California's the best. We have the best state. We have the most amazing economy. And like, you're out of your mind, dude. You've ruined this state.
In Los Angeles, you can't get proper amounts of water.
Right.
And it's unbelievably expensive. And you might have a house in Beverly Hills, and they're actually thinking about rationing water. Can you believe it?
I can believe it.
I was in the farm court country with some of the congressmen. We're driving up a highway, and I say, how come all this land is so barren? It's farmland, and it looked terrible. It was just brown and bad. I said, but there's always that little corner that's so green and beautiful. They said, we have no water. I said, do you have a drought? No, we don't have a drought. I said, why don't you have no water? Because the water isn't allowed to flow down. It's got a natural flow from Canada all the way up north. Water, more water than they could ever use. And in order to protect a tiny little fish, the water up north gets routed into the Pacific Ocean. Millions and millions of gallons of water gets poured. You got to see this. We're driving up, and I had never seen it before. It's like Iowa. It's the most fertile land. Iowa's blessed with great land. Idaho for a potato, right?
Yeah.
But they're just, by the way, some land is good for a potato, some land is good for corn. It's the craziest thing. I love the farmers. They're great. They're the greatest. And by the way, they're getting killed right now.
They are.
They're getting killed because of this stupid administration. But so I see this, and I said, you got to be kidding. I said, you mean you have water? And I looked at it. It's like a valve in your sink, except it's massive. The thing's 5 times taller than your ceiling.
Did you know the center of California was a giant lake?
They have so much water.
You ever see what it looks like before they rerouted it?
I never saw that,
The center of California, what was it, 200 years ago? How long ago did they do that, Jamie? The center of California had a fucking enormous lake in the middle of California.
So they dumped it into the Pacific.
Who knows what they did? But whatever foolishness that they did led to the situation that they're in now.
Think of those dry forests that burned down all over the world. The head of Austria said,
Tulare Lake or Tachi Lake. It's a freshwater lake in the southern San Joaquin Valley, United States. Historically, Tulare Lake was one of the largest freshwater lakes west of Mississippi. Show a photo of what it looked like back then.
It's a great system.
So that's what it looked like. Look at that image. Now go to the one on the third from the right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was an enormous lake in the middle of California. Imagine that.
That'd be much more valuable property.
How crazy is that? But how crazy is that's what it used to look like? And human beings screwed that up.
No, they let it go into the Pacific, and then they.
I don't know what they did. What did they do? How did it go missing?
They said they drained it in 83.
Yeah, they drained it.
1983. Oh my God.
It went dry a handful of times.
Oh, it went dry a handful of times. Well, lakes do go dry, but that's a big one.
But think of
it's
it.
A big one to go dry.
You could have all of the water you need. All of that land would have more water. The whole thing could be like that little patch.
Yeah.
Literally, I'd say I was with Devin Nunes, a congressman, and other congressmen. We were going up. I was visiting that because they asked me to go up and visit their territory, and I did. But I kept saying, look at this land. It's beautiful, but it's so dry. And I thought they were going through like a desert, like a drought. They said, no, we have water, but it gets... So I looked into it.
What is the fish?
And I got it done. I could have water for all of that land, water for your forests. Your forests are dry as a bone.
Yeah.
Okay?
Dangerous.
That water could be routed. You could have everything. Oh, not only dangerous, billions of dollars a year they spend on forest fires. And, there's a case with the environment. They're not allowed to rake their forests because you're not allowed to touch it. When a tree falls down, after 18 months it becomes very dry. It's like, like real firewood. It's bad. A tree that's up, these are all things I learned the hard way, the easy way. But when a tree is up, it sucks water. It's wet. I went to they had a couple of horrible forest fires in California, and I said, you got a lot of trees standing. Yes, they were healthy trees, sir. I said, with this intense heat, You could see they were charred a little bit on the bottom, but they were going to be all right because they're soaking wet because they suck up the water, right? But when they fall,
Right.
they're like, it's like lighting a match.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to clean. They call it maintain your forest. So I was with the head of Austria. He said, it's a shame. I see all those forest fires in California, and all they have to do is clean their forest, meaning rake it up, get rid of the leaves, get rid of, leaves that are sitting there for 5 years. And
We'll certainly get rid of the dead fall.
And get rid of the trees that have fallen that, are like... so many things this country. By the way,
could you really
rake
the whole
done.
forest though? I don't think you could rake the whole forest.
Well, you could,
I think you can get rid of the deadfall, but raking all the leaves.
You could certainly get rid of the dead. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the real issue.
Environmentally, they don't want to do that. They don't. They said, it's got to be nature and all this stuff. But in the meantime, this is exactly. Right. But you could have so. It was the Department of Commerce that needed the approvals, but Gavin Newsom had to sign them. I got it all done. Nobody could believe it. It was all done. I said, I got it. You got so much water. All you have to do is sign. And that guy didn't want to sign.
Did he not want to sign because that would be a political victory for you?
I think, no, he didn't. No, I don't think so. He used to say he's a great president and we got along. We did. We actually got along at that point. But I think somebody said you just can't continue to call him a great president. They do say that. But we had it all done. He didn't sign, and then we got onto other things. And I every time I go to California, I said, you have so much water. They don't know it. I'm telling you, people living in Beverly Hills, they turn off the water. Same thing with the electric. They want to go to all electric cars, but they have brownouts every weekend,
Well, right after they made the announcement that as of 2035, you're not going to be able to buy an internal combustion engine in California, like within a month, they had some announcement asking people to not charge their Teslas. Because the grid couldn't handle it. Well, how are you going to handle it?
I will terminate the mandate immediately. That's a mandate.
Thank you.
And this is the cover of the New York Post. Hell A. Wow. I mean, that's I'm sure how it felt for firefighters and for our news crews, by the way, to be driving, and residents to be driving on some of these streets when you see fire on both sides of the road, and just everything it feels like in that moment is on fire.
It really does look like that in certain spots, too, or it did at least, right? This is not a filter. It was this orange hue had just taken over. Unbelievable.
Here is a perspective that few people have witnessed. Our next guest flew into LAX after his United Airlines flight was rerouted and witnessed an aerial view of these catastrophic fires.
Mark Viniello is that passenger, joins us now. Mark, what's going through your mind when you look out your plane window and you see an absolute hellscape below?
You don't believe what you're seeing. I mean, how does anything prepare you for that view? I mean, it looked like we were flying over Mordor from Lord of the Rings. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah, so we said that your flight was rerouted. First of all, where were you supposed to land? And were you aware that these fires were burning when you were on the plane? Or was the first time you learned about them when you were looking down and saw what we're seeing right now, what you recorded?
Well, we were supposed to fly into Hollywood Burbank Airport, but they rerouted us because of high winds. I believe the Burbank Airport has shorter runways. And you had heard that a fire had broken out. And, being a California resident for a few years, you're like, oh, damn it, another fire. And with the high winds, you think this is not going to be good. But you can't comprehend the impact until you see it. And when I opened my window and just casually looked out, I mean, my jaw hit the floor. And I was like, this is a bad one. This is really bad. And, I'm still just can't believe what's happening. This is really a really bad one.
Go to Stu up in Skyfox right now.
Oh, look at this.
Let's see what this is.
The whole neighborhood.
Yeah, this is what we were. Yeah, we knew this was here, and this is like the first chance that we're actually kind of getting a look at that real devastation. When they keep saying over 1,000 homes burned in the Palisades, this is one of those areas. This neighborhood, I would venture to say, probably 500, maybe more homes out there. As I just get wider and wider, you can see some of the homes still standing, but so many of them just flattened out here. here. We can bring the map back up here in just a moment, but this is off of Sunset near Alma Real Drive. That's going to be the general area, and that's also part of the downtown area there as well. But take a look at that. This is, when you talk about a brush fire and you say, oh, there's some homes that have been destroyed, I never picture anything like this. This is just blocks after blocks after blocks of that neighborhood out here, and you can just see it just goes and goes and goes. And then sometimes there is, oddly enough, there's like a structure standing or maybe a garage standing, but for the most part, I would say every home in this neighborhood flattened due to the Palisades fire.
Meantime, I want to show you this. This is the front page of today's LA Times. Like 1,000 fires. Yeah, I mean, there is no better picture than that. There's no more emblematic picture than that. Just one of absolute terror. Across the Southern California, you have at least 5 people dead as a result of these fires. More than 2,000 structures burned, as Stu was showing us, a couple of hours ago.
Several congressional Republicans are pointing the finger at Democratic control of California at the state and local level, saying there is major mismanagement across the board. Well, we just heard that from Brian Claypool, and Steve Hilton lives in California as well. Fox News contributor Steve.
Harris, let's just take what Newsom said there head on. So, first of all, what is this guy doing? When confronted with the absolute disaster about water running out in the middle of this catastrophe, waving his arms around and saying the local folks are going to figure it out. You're in charge, not some random bystander. And let's talk about his point on politicization and what he does every time, for example, there's one of these dreadful mass shootings. Before the bodies are even buried, he and all the Democrats are in there blaming Republicans, demanding policy change. So yes, it is the time to show why this natural disaster, of course disasters happen, but they are made so much worse in places that are badly run. And there is nowhere worse run than California today after more than a decade of one-party rule. Yes, the water issue, exactly as President Trump was saying, and I've been arguing, we've been putting out policy papers on how to solve this problem month after month on the fire and forest management. That's all true. There's another aspect, Harris. We talk a lot. One of the most immediate points of crisis for people right now is this lack of insurance. We've talked about it a lot.
Yes.
That's also the result of Democrat policy. Why? Why are insurance companies pulling out of California? One, because of the elevated costs of rebuilding anything, thanks to all the regulations, the environmental regulations, the labor regulations, all of it massively increased the price and cost of building anything in California, making it so expensive. That's why they're pulling out. The second reason is artificial caps on the rates that insurance companies can charge, imposed by Democrat politicians in California. So every single aspect of this disaster, the long-term failures that made it so much worse, the short-term failures of the warning and the response and the crisis response in terms of people trying to put their lives back together, every single aspect of that has been made worse by Democrat policies, a combination of incompetence and ideological extremism. And that's why people who didn't realize it before, now right across this city and this state, understand we need change in California. That's what that's why I've been talking, for example, to faith leaders about how the faith community can step up right now in offering people help right now. Of course we need to do that. But if we don't also make the point about the serious, years-long failures that have caused the suffering in an unnecessary scale, on an unnecessary level, that could have been avoided, then we are failing in our responsibility right now.
I don't know if you can see it, these brand new live pictures now showing the devastation. I have likened this to the worst of hurricanes that had rain that I have ever covered as a journalist. But this had fire.